Delta virus detected in Jamaica. COVID cases are rising. There is a 7-day lockdown called No Movement Days. And on top of that, Tropical Storm Grace flooded the entire island, leaving thousands of people with no power. At least this is the picture painted in the news. Now the reality. Tropical Storm Grace mostly affected some eastern parts of the island. A few roads got flooded, but no massive damage was done. And power was restored within a day in most places and took about 3 days in others. It just so happened that I was on the road during the whole day of the storm, and there is a video you can watch. COVID-19 Delta variant was detected in Jamaica and announced on the 18th of August 2021, making Jamaica one of the last countries for Delta variant to reach, while the rest of the world has been battling Delta for several months now. Considering how contagious Delta variant is, and Jamaica had full open borders and travelers could travel all the time, one of the reasons it hadn't reached earlier is because of the travel requirements that you're going to hear in this video. COVID cases are rising everywhere in the world, again, and Jamaica is not an exception. Here, this is a large wave of COVID cases happening from the beginning of July across almost every country. Few examples. This is the USA, this is the UK, Canada, and this is Jamaica. As you see, the amount of active cases in Jamaica have now reached a half of what we had in spring this year. And it will probably grow higher before it drops down again. The 7-day lockdown is actually not a lockdown, and it's not 7 days because they're not in a row. These are no movement days, which are designed to reduce the growth of COVID cases in Jamaica, and mainly they influence shopping and entertainment. Whether they are effective or not, it's not for me to judge. I'm just delivering the facts, and we'll talk more about this after the curfew section of this video. Despite all of this happening in the world for the last 1.5 years, Jamaica is still open for travel. What is Carnival Sunrise cruise ship arrived, signifying the reopening of cruising in Jamaica. This was the first cruise ship since the industry paused operation in March 2020. There is currently a lot of controversy in the media and among Jamaicans themselves. One side is upset about the tourism industry still operating and claim that Jamaica should go into complete lockdown, while the other side is also upset, but about the curfew and other restrictive measures and want all of them to be removed so people can live a normal life. This episode is an update for visitors, but if you'd like to see a deeper analysis on pros and cons, whether Jamaica should go into lockdown or should stay completely open or something in between, and the consequences of any of those possibilities, do let me know in the comment section below, and make sure to check your notification bell so you won't miss the video when it comes out. At the moment of publishing this video, if you wish to come to Jamaica and enjoy all the attractions, beaches, restaurants and shops, all of them are open during all days apart from these few days. However, from the start of the pandemic, keep in mind that the situation with traveling can change any moment. That's why please check the pinned comment under this video. I'll be posting any updates there. Now, before you travel to Jamaica, step number 1 is to go to the official government website for visitors that has all Jamaica travel information. It's called visitjamaica.com travel authorization. It is being updated all the time, and it is the only website for reference, and the link is in the description. You must fill out a travel authorization form online on the website within 7 days before your intended travel date and wait until it gets approved. Most applications are now instantly approved, but if you don't receive a response within a few days, you can use a direct contact form on the front page of their website. Just scroll down until you see need support. All travelers to Jamaica 12 years or older have to do a COVID test regardless if vaccinated or not. Fully vaccinated travelers do have bonuses, but we'll talk about them later. Accepted test types are here. Antigen is the cheapest and fastest. It takes like 15 minutes to get results. Date of the sample collection must be within 3 days of your travel date. To be sure you don't take the test too early, use test date calculator on the official website so you won't get confused. You don't need to upload your test results. You should only show them at the check-in before your flight. If during the last 14 days you have visited one of these countries, you cannot travel to Jamaica still. And this is regardless if you are vaccinated or not. There are areas in Jamaica where you can freely travel from day one. They're called resilient corridors and include all the north coast of Jamaica and a large part of south coast. Actually, almost all the areas where most popular attractions are located and where tourists usually go. Most tourist attractions within resilient corridors are still open. This includes beaches, waterfalls, activities, and so on. All of this has been the same for the last year, but here are now a few things that changed slightly. The current curfew hours are from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. on weekdays and longer curfew hours at weekends. These are pretty much the same curfew hours we had in Jamaica back in spring and the beginning of summer. However, from the 1st of July, they were relaxed first and then returned back to where we were before. For some reason, it was presented as tougher measures, while in reality, it was just back to the original measures, at least when it comes to curfew hours. But what do these curfew hours mean anyway? It means that during this time, pretty much everything is closed, but outside of these times, you are allowed to go to attractions, restaurants, and shops. But there is another important thing to note. Even during the curfew hours, that is when everything is closed, you as a traveler can leave your property if you need to travel between your accommodation at the airport or if you need to relocate from one accommodation to the other, provided you have proof of your reservation or flight. And yes, you can visit the attraction called Luminous Lagoon close to Falmouth. As long as you go there before 7 p.m. and use licensed transportation, you can return after the attraction even during the curfew hours. A few days ago, the government of Jamaica introduced the so-called no movement days. And they go 3 sets. There were 3 no movement days from 22nd to 24th of August. Then there is a 4-day break with normal days and regular curfews so people can do shopping and other things. Then again, another set of 3 no movement days to the 31st of August, then a break of 4 normal days, and then the last no movement day on the 5th of September, just 1 day. At least this is the information for the moment as I'm recording this video. So what are these no movement days? To put it simple, you're not supposed to hang around the streets for no reason. This exclusive footage during the 23rd of August during one of the no movement days, and I managed to film it on the way from the airport after picking up one of our guests. As you see, the streets are really empty, and it also proves that most people actually follow the request from the government, even though a lot of them were very unhappy about it. However, any attentive person might ask a question: why are these men making jerk chicken in the center of Montego Bay on a no movement day? This is because no movement requirement doesn't apply to everyone. There is a list of 52 categories of persons who have been granted the permission to travel to and from work. And yes, it includes the men cooking jerk chicken because they have a license to work and they fall under category 5. Any person employed in service concerning the provision of food. The same for the delivery person who falls under category 23, persons employed to courier services. If you check the list of these categories, you will see that pretty much everyone is allowed to go to work. So in reality, no movement days are more like no entertainment and no shopping days. None of this affects people much who are staying in the resorts, especially if that's what they want to do, stay on the resort. However, it will influence your trip if you're staying in an Airbnb without any cooking facilities and no food delivery in the area, or if you want to visit attractions on these particular days. Other than that, it's the same thing we've had for the last 1.5 years. And again, like with curfews, if you have to travel between your accommodation and the airport or between accommodations, you are allowed to do so during no movement days because it is viewed as essential travel. But what about the quarantine? If you're not fully vaccinated, when you come to Jamaica, you have to quarantine, regardless of where you are staying, in resorts, in Airbnbs, private residence, doesn't matter. Quarantine rules are the same and apply to everyone who's not vaccinated and traveling to Jamaica. When you are in quarantine in Jamaica, however, it doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in and isolate. While in quarantine, you can leave your property and travel anywhere you want within resilient corridors. You can visit all tourist attractions, restaurants and shops. You can use private transport such as a taxi. And yes, you can rent a car. So what's the quarantine then? Here are the restrictions. You're not allowed to travel outside of the resilient corridor. You cannot visit events such as parties, weddings, funerals. You cannot go to any public gatherings like a church. And you cannot use public transport such as buses or route taxis. All of these restrictions apply for the first 14 days of your trip. It doesn't mean that you have to come to Jamaica for minimum of 14 days. You can come for one day if you want. That's fine. You can then just leave. But if you're staying longer than 14 days, on day 15, you can get a quarantine release form from the Ministry of Health in order to leave the resilient corridor and use public transportation and so on. All of this applies to visitors who are not fully vaccinated. If you are fully vaccinated, you are required to quarantine for only 8 days instead of 14. What is more, fully vaccinated persons can take an approved PCR test, and upon presentation of negative results, you can be released from the quarantine order completely and travel outside of resilient corridor, use public transport from day one, and so on. This is another point where a lot of people get confused. I have already explained it in my previous updates, but I have to mention it again. There is a list of so-called COVID-19 protocol compliant approved listings. And it is designed to encourage guests to choose accommodation from this list. But it doesn't mean you have to. You can choose any accommodation you want anywhere in Jamaica, including Airbnbs, families and friends, and even if they are outside of resilient corridor. If you don't see your accommodation in the list, simply select private home and get the address with a pin on the map. Accommodation choice does not influence the approval of your travel authorization, but it does influence the kind of form you receive as a result. If you select private home, you will get Form B that says home quarantine order, which makes it sound as if you have to isolate, but you don't. If you read the form in detail, it tells you to isolate only if you have COVID symptoms. But if you don't have COVID symptoms, you can travel within resilient corridor, visit attractions, shops, basically do the same as guests who stay in resorts and other tourist board licensed accommodations. Please note, all of this is relevant only if you are a tourist. If you are a Jamaican resident, you will have to isolate for 14 days when you come back to Jamaica, unless you are fully vaccinated, in which case the isolation is only 8 days. For business travelers, there are separate rules as well. Please check the link in the description. The last but not least, COVID test before you leave. There are plenty of places in Jamaica where you can do a COVID test before your flight back home. Some hotels in Jamaica offer test services on their property, but please keep in mind this service can attract an extra fee. The description has a link to all test centers in Jamaica, and as a backup plan, Montego Bay Airport itself has a COVID test center available for you. Antigen test results there take only 15 minutes to be ready, but the lines can take some time. So just make sure if you wish to do the test at the airport, come about 4 hours before your flight. From the last travel update, I remember people writing comments like, oh, too many rules, too complicated to travel. I'm just quite detailed because I would like to make sure I answer all the questions people might have about traveling to Jamaica at this time. But if we sum up the rules, they're actually very simple and straightforward. All visitors who come to Jamaica have to fill out travel authorization form and do a COVID test right before they travel. Then they should stay anywhere within resilient corridor in any type of accommodation they want. Then they can visit all the attractions, restaurants and shops, provided they do it outside of curfew hours and outside of no movement days. And before they leave Jamaica, they have to do a COVID test again if it is required by their home country. That's it. These rules and regulations are not complicated. What visitors should really think about to make sure they follow them to minimize any risk of COVID transmission to the locals or other visitors. Using public transport and hugging your relatives and friends on day one after your arrival, even if you're vaccinated, means you're breaking this set of rules and might put the lives of others in danger. That's it for today. Remember to check the pinned comment under the video for the latest update. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks to all the subscribers and all patrons who support this channel. If you wish to join our team of patrons, you can do so by following the link to Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Irina, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.